Everyone, this is Colleen with Speaking of Spirits, and I'm here with my good friends, Haywire and Gina.
Hello.
Well, we all know Haywire is Kate on Speaking of Spirits.
I
Yeah.
know. I was like, that's an interesting name you've given me. Oh, wait, it wasn't me.
Yeah. We've had a massive snowstorm hit, and so we can't all be in person because I don't think you can get off your hill yet.
Nope. Not yet. Not for a while.
It's been absolutely bonkers 48 hours around here, and it's still snowing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's kind of like, do we live where? Alaska? Because that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
So,
1.5 to 2 feet of snow in some places, and it's still going outside.
I guess we can't complain because I think the Sierras got pounded with like 12 feet of snow or something like that, 5 feet in a day in certain areas. So, I guess, yeah.
Well, my son drives tow truck, and tow trucks were getting stuck yesterday, having to call other tow trucks to get them out. And he said there were places it was over 5 foot tall drifts of snow that people were into.
Wow.
Around here?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That's bananas.
Yeah.
So I have a friend who lives just around the corner from me, and she's always, so when she posts this, we'll have 6 inches of snow, and she'll say, like, you know, we had 3 feet of snow, and I'm like, how does that happen? But I guess maybe it's the drifts, because she's like, it's above my knees. And my friend Linda said, is she like 2 feet tall? I'm like, no.
Yeah.
But it's probably the drifting. And I know.
Well, and the hills, because like you're on a hill and I'm on a hill.
Yeah.
And it's like where we piled the snow is 5 feet tall.
Right.
And in the yard is 1.5 to 2 feet deep. And there was no snow a few days ago. So
I know. Yeah, cleaning stalls and trying to get the wheelbarrow out the barn, and I'm like, I got about 5 feet out the barn and just gave up and dumped the wheelbarrow. Said I'll get it with the tractor later. I can't get through the drifts. So, yeah. Anyway, it's been bananas. But anyway, we are here, and today we're going to talk about our Frazer Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we did an investigation. Why don't you take it and talk about it a little?
This was our final night of the class. Colleen was teaching in the community ed program at Idaho State, and we got to go and investigate one of the more haunted, not that there's not a million haunted places on campus, but one of the more renowned haunted buildings on the campus, and it's Frazer Hall Auditorium, and they have classrooms, and it was much bigger than what I had thought.
Me
with
too.
the other floors. I hadn't realized they had so many classrooms and different things like that. But everyone was really excited. We didn't have anything overly dramatic, except for one of the people on our team kind of got punched in an area where he had some illness with his pancreas before, and he left early.
That's right.
And yours truly, who everyone avoids like the plague from the other side, got grabbed. So that was kind of interesting. But I would rather, I think, be us.
Yeah.
That was actually physically, well, especially Tim, because it caused him pain. It didn't cause me pain, but I had a bruise. And I know I couldn't have bumped into anything because it was the inside of my knee, not the outside. Like you bump the outside of your knee on stuff all the time. It was weird. Mine didn't feel painful, but it did freak me out because, like I said, usually they don't touch me, or at least not like that.
How many students did you guys take in for this investigation?
So there was 20 students in the class, and I think we had 19 there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was just missing one. 2.
And
we were missing 2.
How many people from the team were there?
Probably 6 or 7 or more.
7, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, 7. So, yeah. So we kind of paired off with one investigator with a couple of students so that, you know, we didn't want the students scaring each other silly. We wanted them to be with a seasoned investigator. So,
well, and the other thing is when you have that many people, it's easier to have one person contain them. So I heard footsteps. Well, yeah, it was the other people walking, down the hall kind of thing. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how do you prepare people who have never been on an investigation? I know you guys did a 6-week course, but is there any advice you give to people before you walk in, either about like don't get yourselves like, I don't know. I think I would psych myself out a little bit, right? On my first investigation, every noise I hear, I'm like, oh, that's definitely it. So what do you guys do to prepare new people?
Well, we had the class, so the whole 6 weeks is basically preparing them for all kinds of paranormal. We talked about all kinds of things paranormal to kind of lead them into the investigation. So by the time the night comes along, we've talked to them, we've shown them our videos, we've talked about different scenarios, the kind of do's and don'ts. And I think they were all pretty prepared, and just nobody got scared that I'm aware of.
No.
Like, everybody had a good time.
Well, and most of the ones that I had talked to had kind of done their own thing. They probably didn't have the equipment, so they kind of had gone out and explored, I guess. I was gonna, most of them, but also just kind of maybe informing them of it's not a zoo where you look on the outside of the bars, you're like actually can interact with things. So protection and being aware of your surroundings and who you're with and what's going on. So that would probably be something that they hadn't experienced before.
Yeah. And also, so before the investigation, I cleared the building to make sure that there wasn't anybody in the building that shouldn't be in the building. And then we had campus security that had gone through and the building. And even though and they were just a phone call away if we had an issue or somebody walked in on us that shouldn't be there. But we had, I think it was 4 floors, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the basement, the main where the stage is, and then 2 above it. So yeah, there was 4 floors.
4 floors. So it's a big building, but we had a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But we were able to contain groups and like rotate around every 20 or 30 minutes or so to a different spot so that everybody could experience every part of the building.
Did any floor have more activity than the other? Like,
below the stage, I think had a little bit more, probably.
That it was that literally below the stage where I got touched, and I believe that Tim had said he was in the downstairs, but
was it like the dressing
came
rooms?
in and took out for I don't know where Tim's was. I was thinking it was. I was literally standing in front of the stage. We were pretty much done for the day, and there was like this little wood lip, like people were sitting on it before, that kind of went around the front under the stage, and there was a curtain back behind it. So we had done one of the students had connected, he felt, with the dowsing rods to someone who had not crossed. And so I went down to help try to make them able to cross, which supposedly turned out great. So we'd all just been down under this stage, which you cannot stand up. It's not tall enough that you can stand up. And there's like an area where that little lip isn't, so you can go in and out. And I'd come out and I was just to the one side of it. And we were standing there talking, and I had put my foot up on the lip and was kind of leaning forward on the stage, and something grabbed.
I remember you said that.
Yeah, something grabbed the top of my leg, and I don't know if they pulled down or when they grabbed me, I pulled back, but I felt it like if this was my knee, it came down like this. And like I said, typically I have more sensors that I feel things, and I don't know if because I'd let my guard down because we were kind of at the end, or if it was just a very quick thing, but I jumped backward, and I don't normally do that. I usually face off and be like, okay, enough of this nonsense. But I literally jumped backward, and needless to say, I didn't stand back over there again. But it was strange. That was probably, I mean, we had a little bit of activity on our equipment, but not much.
So the thing is, when you get that many people, I think, in a building, things quiet down. Or if we went in there with just 6 people on our team and do what we normally do, we would have had a ton more activity. But I think it overwhelms the building when you get that many people.
Yeah.
But even though every team had something happen. Yeah. Could have been little, but every team, we got Polaroids, and we got 3 Polaroids of something.
Yeah. Well, and there
like orbs or
no
images.
Images. Things, something.
Yeah, something.
Something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't like crisp clear like our picture.
No.
But there was a shape.
Definitely.
that was not explainable by any of the pictures before
Yeah.
or after, or someone possibly standing and having a reflection. None of that.
No, and we'll put those in the final video when we do a video for it. But it's, yeah, we did get in something that we definitely are going to add to our kit is Polaroids, because I was actually Kate with Lou, little Lou in Blackfoot. She's been using Polaroids a lot on different things, and she's getting. It brings me back to old school because my mom and I used to use Polaroids, and then you know what I mean. So I'm like, okay, instead of going higher tech, I think we're going to go lower tech because I think we get more. I used to get more EVPs on the cassettes,
recorders,
the cassette recorders, than we do on the digital, and I don't know why. I don't understand that.
Well, I wonder if it just picks up so much more. It's harder to decipher it where the cassettes were more basic.
Could be.
So I don't know. But
yeah.
well, and then me trying to hear mine, I can't often hear something else going on in mine. But yeah, I think that that's a good idea. And I like when we do smaller groups of people too, because you can sit and you can have the lights down. When we had so many people, you couldn't really turn lights down because for safety purposes,
Right.
which is fine. And because hauntings happen in the daylight too.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the most I don't even know. Remarkable, I guess is a good word. One of the most remarkable encounters I had was broad daylight, the middle of the day, outside at a cemetery. And so no, it doesn't have to be dark. But I think sometimes when it is dark inside, you can quiet your mind a little more and focus on hearing things if you're not moving versus if everybody's up moving and the lights are on and more distractions.
Yeah. Yeah, and you got to remember, this wasn't a typical investigation. This was part of a class. We were teaching them how to kind of use the equipment. We were letting them use the equipment more than we were using the equipment. We were giving them the equipment, like, you guys take this, take that, take this, and let's break off in teams. And they were using the equipment and having a good time. And so it's fun. It's fun because we got to interact with, the community who likes this field of work and teach them something. And we've gotten from that class 2 people who want to start their own team. And I think that's fabulous.
Yeah.
The one is literally just waiting for their approval of a name. I spoke with Kyle this last week, and
I love the name choice. If it's still the same,
I'm pretty sure they submitted it, and they're just waiting for approval. That you're supposed to submit to the state of Idaho.
Yeah, but it's instantaneous.
Well, apparently, maybe not anymore. I don't know. He said he submitted the form to get whatever copyright. It's not copyright.
No, it's secured. You like, for speaking of spirits, with the Secretary of State, like, grab the name, and Nightmare Road, grab the name, so that nobody can take the name. Right. Hotel Paranormal, grab the name.
Well, of course they can in other ways. They can say Snake River, speaking of spirits.
Yeah, and that's fine, whatever.
Yeah.
People get weird. So, and that's weird because, and it's always good if you're going to have a team to do stuff like that, right? Get your name secured with the Secretary of State in your state. Because this is when the Sacramento Kings, this is going back some years now, but when they were moving from Kansas City, I think they were the Kansas City Kings or something like that. When they were moving to Sacramento, a guy grabbed the SacramentoKings.com. He secured that. Oh. And they had to pay him like millions of dollars to get that website from him. And there's what people who do that. They'll hear stuff like coming up and coming things or trendy moves that are going to happen with baseball, football, all this kind of stuff. And they'll go and grab those sites, those websites. And then they have to
they did a skit on Saturday Night Live like that, and it was like whatever the name .clownfart.org, because they had to make it different to be able to use it. So
never think of something to make me money, But anyway, so I think Frazer Hall was good. We've heard a lot of stories about the hauntings there, and we didn't have anything over the top that night. We did get, like I said, Polaroids. We got stuff in the Polaroids, definitely. Everybody had some sort of.
Well, there were multiple people that reported if you're standing on the stage and you look up, there's a balcony above just the regular mezzanine seating. And to the left side, as you're looking forward, was a big spotlight. I saw something, and I think three
I
or
did.
four, yeah, several other people reported seeing. I saw like a shadowy, it was human shaped,
Human shaped,
but it was a shadowy figure right by that spotlight. But of course, when we went up there, nothing, you know, profound was caught.
Do we know the history of Frazer Hall, like why it's possibly haunted, or it's just one of those buildings that's just notorious for it?
No, and actually, I don't know, and that's a good question because I wanted to call up there and talk to the university, try to figure it out. Like, do they have a historian up there?
Probably, but I would say some things that play into it are it's a block from the cemetery.
Yeah, that's
It
true.
was a block, basically a couple blocks from the hospital, just down the hill from where the hospital was. Just the fact that Pocatello has such a diverse history. We have Native American culture. We have the railroad that came in. So there are a lot of hauntings, period. Are, like you've said, the ley lines and the lava rock or the limestone. It helps to generate energy for those kind of things. Plus, people that are theatrical tend to have a great passion for that. And the other thing was we have a lot of mediums and we had a lot of equipment. And so for the most part, I think others that may not be in that building all the time were like, oh, hey, people that can notice us, and came in because there were some people that connected others with a grandfather or a former teacher or different things like that. So I always tell people being a medium is like being the lighthouse in the storm, and you have this light, and it's like everything's like, oh my gosh, they can see me. And so things are drawn in.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot that people did connect with some of their relatives that had passed on that night during the investigation.
Yeah.
How did that, can you tell more about that without like making it too personal? Like,
was it on your team, right?
No, it wasn't on my team. It was on Andy's team and on Suzanne's team. But I wasn't trying to do that either. I went there to try to see what was going on there and to let them see if they could notice. So I was coming from a different angle. But yeah, I don't know. I wasn't on the teams where that happened, but one, it was a grandfather that came through. Katie, that is Suzanne's daughter, had a spirit that visits her in the rendezvous come down, and we've had it when we did the house over on Harrison that it came across, and you when you were at the Yellowstone it came. So there are, okay, so this is my scientifically documented not theory that there are entities that have chosen not to cross, and they're free roaming. They can go places and do things, and then there's those that are stuck. And by stuck, like the person that I was helping to cross, thought they passed in Frazer Hall. I didn't feel like they had, but again, the hospital was just up the road. I'm thinking that maybe they fell or they got hurt or head trauma, and that was the last conscious place they remembered, but they probably passed on the way or at the hospital, kind of a thing. So there's lots of different variables. And again, how do you scientifically, other than knowing, you can look if people have died there or whatever. But we do, like I said, it's the biggest cemetery. There isn't another cemetery in town, actually. There's the two right next to each other, like a half a mile, quarter of a mile. And then
the
hospital
down by South Fifth by Maverick.
Yeah.
Kind of, and then
Yeah. And then the hospital was just up the road. So
yeah, so it's an interesting place, and let's not forget it was also the hunting ground of the infamous Ted Bundy.
Oh yeah.
So apparently he took a girl off campus. So
just up that same hill.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that have gone down on that hill. So
it's interesting because being a student there, like I think every building I have heard has some sort of activity. And so I don't know if that's typical of universities where there's so many people that come and go through and so many, like, you know what I mean? Like if it's just a hot spot for all that energy or what it is to it, or if that's something that's more Idaho State to be haunted. But
well, My husband, first husband, was a security officer on campus for 7 years when we were married, back in the 90s. And there were buildings because they had to go and check throughout the night. They would drive through campus and then they would go and check each of the different buildings, make sure doors were locked, blah, blah, blah. There were places where they had to have another person. And it wasn't that anything horrible happened, but the door would shut and lock behind them. And then their radios wouldn't work because they were in the basement of this huge brick building. So they always had to have other people. And there were places, I have had friends that were like custodial workers there. And you worked the floor with other people just because strange things happened. And
Right.
that has been pretty universal on campus, depending on the different buildings. But yeah, there were a couple, 2 or 3 buildings that it was like you don't go in there alone just for security because they had people locked in the building until the next day and someone found them.
I did forget, and I mentioned now that so we were using the equipment for a couple of nights in our classroom,
Mm-hmm.
and we came and the students used the equipment in that building. So we were in the College of Technology building for the classes, and so one night when they were using, there was names that they came up with, right? Well, those names they came up with again in Frazer Hall.
Oh, and well, again, it's just all right there.
Yeah. So that when they were doing either, EVP sessions, those names came forward again. So that was pretty interesting. So
I think
yeah.
it's interesting that the spirits can move about, because when you like watch a movie, like they're stuck in the house and like it's just crazy to me that you could have one pop up in multiple locations all over. It makes sense, but it's something I wouldn't
Well,
have thought about.
one of the things, this is my way I describe things. So we have spirits that are like maybe a loved one or a friend that's passed and they've crossed and they come and visit us. So they like grandma shows up when you're having a hard time and sits with you on your bed or whatever like that. Then there are the ghosts, and that is what I consider more they're stuck where they passed. Most of the time because they're afraid to cross over because they probably were not great people or they did bad things and they don't want to deal with what they're worried is going to be a consequence of, going to hell or having penance or whatever for their behavior. And then there are those who choose not to cross. And we have found that, especially with houses that have been on an acreage. And maybe that farmer that homesteaded that put his blood, sweat, and tears into that land, into that home, into everything. And he doesn't want to leave it. And so I think there's different, and then there's the non-human kinds of things because we have Native American stuff. So there's lots of different variables. But yeah, no, they're absolutely like the grandparents visiting the students that were there, and like the spirit that was up this area suddenly is down in this area, so on and so forth. And there was a lot of like former teachers that came through that I don't know that there's even like a history of Dr. So and so haunting Frazer Hall, but he came and said, I'm Dr. So and so and I taught here because the university is over 100 years old.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I think anywhere where you have something like a university where you have people who've taught there for a long time or worked there for a long time, they just like anywhere else where you have somebody who's maybe put their blood, sweat, and tears, like you said, into a passion of their work, they're going to stick around.
yeah.
They're going to stick around, whether it's the university or the military with their ships and their aircraft, whatever. I mean, yeah. But we had a lot of gifted people in the class, and so they were drawing, people to them. So
that's really cool. Do you have another class coming up?
Yes, the first Friday in May. It's when it starts. So the mailer comes out. I'm not sure exactly when, but
Should be sometime soon because it's usually a few months ahead, isn't it?
I think so. Maybe 2 months to 6 weeks ahead. And I pared the class down to 15 people. It's about as low as I can get it for the school, and because I think 20 was the class size really doesn't matter. You can have 200 people in the class. It's the night in the investigation that makes it hard.
Right.
So yeah, just bringing it down, even 5 people might help a little bit on the night of the investigation. So,
do you know where your next location is, or how do you and the university determine that?
I just ask.
Just ask.
The students wanted Frazer Hall. And so I asked and they let us do it. So I'm hoping that if, also because this next class is going to be in a warm season, right? Hopefully. It stops snowing because it's still snowing. I want to do some more outdoor things with this group.
That'd be cool.
More outdoor use of the equipment around the campus to get them used to it, and then maybe take them a couple of places that I know locally outdoors that has activity. Maybe we'll meet there one night, and instead of having class in the classroom, we'll all go there and meet there. That kind of thing.
That'd be so cool because I've done like the haunted places in Pocatello, like the top 10, and like go tour around. That would be cool to kind of do something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
we have a huge haunted history in our town.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's been a lot of history that would contribute to the, like the railroad, and we had the prohibition, and we had prostitution, and we had Native American, and just all of those kind of things. Plus, it was kind of the Wild West. I mean, really, and
it
truly,
really was the Wild West.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but we were a part of Oregon Trail, and we were a part of the pioneers from the LDS faith coming through. There's been a lot of, even though it's still pretty rural. I mean, we have some big cities in Idaho, but we're a pretty rural state. There's been a lot of things that have come through, and a lot of tragedies as
Put
well.
it in perspective. The whole state of Idaho could fit in the county of Sacramento.
That's so crazy.
The population. So that's what I mean. We are, even though everybody's like, oh, we're growing, we're still really small. And we will stay small because about 70% of Idaho's federal land.
Yeah.
It's BLM or Forest Service, so it cannot be built on, which is good in that it can't be developed, and it's the land for people to use. It's multiple use land, right? So we can go out and enjoy this land. And it's a prime example in Pocatello, right? Because you have the benches that are built, but that top bench where that top house is, you can't build above that because it's either BLM or Forest Service. Otherwise, they'd be building it would be built. So having that public land kind of landlock everything in is keeps us small. And for people who have worked or lived around those large cities, and we don't want that, Idaho's the perfect place, right?
Yeah.
So, except for the winter.
Yeah, a lot
except
of people
for the last
love outdoor activities in the snow, and my favorite outdoor activity in the snow is being indoors.
Yes. It's so horrible to have livestock in the snow.
Yeah.
It is so horrible, even though they have a barn, and it's so horrible to deal with livestock in the cold temperatures and the snow. And it's just.
Well, not only that, then that becomes the easier hunting ground for predators too.
Oh, yeah. The coyotes have been crazy the last few nights. Crazy. So
yeah, they'll wake me up at 2 or 3 a.m. just hearing them all talking.
Yeah. Coming in, yeah. And it's fine as long as they're staying out there, but I've had them trying to come in and to the property. And I'm not sure Banshee would, although maybe she would. She's starting to get that attitude of, this is my property. But Daisy, my other bloodhound, this was her property, and she would slam the gate and try to scare off the And she was twice the size of Banshee. She was 140 pounder. She's a big dog, and she'd slam that gate, and the coyotes would take off because she's not having it. But they want to come in and get the goats.
Yeah.
So that's why the goats, they don't leave the barn. They come in at night. They won't leave that barn. So
it's also warm. Yeah.
Well, it's warm, and then I think they think that the donkey's going to protect him. And the donkey's the first one to end up in my bedroom scared. But yeah, so anyway, Frazer Hall, getting back to Frazer Hall. Frazer Hall was really fun. We will probably be back there again with another class, I'm assuming. I think everything went well. I didn't hear anything from the university saying that we've broken something or something went horribly wrong and never come back. So I think it'll work out for the class as being one of those spots that we can be at. But there's so much on that campus has activity that will probably, as these classes keep going,
I think it would be more fun to hit the different ones.
Yeah, I want to keep hitting the different ones and different locations, and then find out for ourselves what's the really hot spots. Because I really thought Frazer Hall would be a little more on, but I
Mm-hmm.
think it has a lot to do with how many people.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, and it was a bad storm. I mean, there's all kinds
Oh, it
of
was a bad
factors
storm that
that
night,
play
too.
into things. Yeah, you took a nosedive because of the ice.
Oh, God, that's right. Yeah, I'm still.
Well, a hand dive, I guess. Yeah.
It was just a solid sheet of black ice when we came outside that night after the investigation. It looked like it was rainy.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it was not
No.
wet.
Yeah.
It
It was shiny, but
it was
not wet.
shiny.
It was shiny slip.
Yeah, it was really, really slippery that night. So,
But
yeah.
yeah, a lot of the buildings are right around that quad. There's like Gravely Hall, and there's like the museum building.
What is Gravely Hall? Is that
Gravely Hall was a former dormitory, and now they have offices in there because I believe, and I could be totally wrong, but if any of you know and can validate that, there were suicides. They would do summer schools, and students would house in there. And I had heard, this was my first husband who was working security, that there had been 2 suicides inside the dormitory, hanging themselves.
Yeah, so I worked in Gravely Hall. That's what I did for my job during my time at university, and it's I definitely that's probably one of the first times I really was like, okay, maybe there's something to ghosts and spirits, because I really didn't believe in it before then. But yeah, it was dormitories, and I don't know if they have it listed down, but everyone in there talks about how there were 2 suicides in that building. So,
uh
And I'm sure there have been suicides and overdoses and more than that building.
yeah.
Just because there's so many students, and like I don't know during the school year, but I do know this was a summer program supposedly. This is the story I heard. It was a summer program, and so it was troubled students or students maybe that had fallen behind in school and they came up there for something. But yeah, that's an unfortunate part of everywhere, not just the university, but I think with all the people and all the stone buildings, I think that is a big part of it. The stone holds that. Whether it's an actual live, and live is a bad word, an interactive haunting or residual, that stone holds that energy. And it has to be a very traumatic moment when someone chooses to take their life. And so I would imagine that energy would be something that would stick pretty strongly. And again, like I said, a block that way is the cemetery. A block up the hill was one of the main hospitals that had been around forever. It was the Bannock County, or the, what was it called? Bannock Hospital?
Bannock Hospital.
Bannock Hospital.
Yeah. So speaking of that, you brought up that the types of hauntings, and I think Frazer Hall had both of them that night. We had residual, and we had intelligent. Something grabbed your leg. That's intelligent.
Yeah.
That's an interactive haunt, right? Where residual is
maybe the shadow.
The shadow. That's what I was thinking. The shadow and the spotlight, or those footsteps that play out every night at 2 a.m. in your house. Going up and down the stairs or something. That's a residual energy that's playing at
like a
loop
record
in time. Yeah, stuck record, and it doesn't interact, and it never changes its pattern. It's just always the same, and there's no interaction. But if something's touching you or moving something in your house, that's interactive. That's an intelligent haunt. At least that's what.
Right.
Yeah,
we define it as best we can.
Yes.
So yeah. Anyway, but I think this was I like this topic. I always like talking about the investigations, because they're all different, and you never know what's going to happen on them.
I also love the honesty. I feel like some groups out there will just play up everything, not try and debunk everything, and I like that from you guys. You'll just say, you won't make it out to be like something crazy that it wasn't. You'll be like, yeah, there was some activity, like this is what we found to work, what didn't. Like, I really enjoy that from you guys. So,
well, one of the people that was in my group, I had 3 people in my group, were very skeptical. And one of the things that he said is, I don't know if I trust this equipment. And I said, if it makes you feel better, I don't either. It's like, because there are times when I physically sense energy, I sense something, I hear something, I see it, but usually it's the goosebumps and the hair standing on end, and the machines and the equipment are like dead silent.
We did debunk that night. We did. And it was a couple. Okay, so one lady had a thermal, not a thermal camera. It was a like a, it wasn't thermal. It was
The one that did the
the
little...
red, the Colleen, what is wrong with you today? So we were using an ILS, okay, an app that does an ILS, and the ILS will show you human shaped stuff, right?
Mhm.
Like if a human's forming, or and I've used it in my house where my dad stands, and it showed him a couple of times, but it'll also show a lamp as being a human. So you got to watch it because it'll try to make a human shape out of stuff, okay?
Right.
So we were using an ILS, and then one of the students had a it wasn't a thermal, but it was like a it was a certain lens so that she was scanning. And as those two beams crossed in the one with the lens, not the ILS, but as the lens came over the ILS, it was doing lights everywhere. So it looked like just scatters of lights, like fireflies dancing all around. And we're like, what the heck? And we thought, what is that? And we kept, is that something trying to manifest? And it took us a while to figure out it was the beams crossing, like in Ghostbusters. Don't cross the beams, because they were interacting with each other. Well, you could very easily take that and run with it and say that was activity, but we figured it out, and then we kept doing it over and over again, and we're like, yeah, that's okay. That's those two pieces of equipment don't work well together. And then we were in one of the classrooms, and there was a podium, and there was a sign, an ISU emblem on the podium. And the ILS kept trying to make a human, because I think it saw that sign as like a t-shirt.
Oh.
And so it kept showing the podium as a person. And we're like, what is going on? And so we turned the podium sideways so the emblem was gone, and it stopped. There was no more person.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Although there was a person that kept shooting up in the corner of that room. And so that was something manifesting there, but it wouldn't stay. And as you would expect, it wouldn't stay still. It kept moving around and shifting around. And so the ILS couldn't track it real well, but we were able to debunk the podium. Yeah. So I like being able to debunk, because you can't, you have to try to figure it out, because the equipment is not, like you said, it's not
infallible. But yeah, there would be times the equipment's going crazy and I'm like, I feel nothing. I am not hearing anything. I'm not sensing. So yeah, when I told him, I said, I don't trust the equipment half the time. So, but that's because I've had to learn what I feel when something's near or something's trying to communicate with me. But
yeah.
Does that mean I'm infallible? No.
Yeah. So, I mean, if nothing else, at least teaching the class that portion, if they're going forward and they're going to investigate how to debunk stuff and how to reason out things, like, is it your cell phone making something going off? Or that was just happenstance where we didn't even know that. And it wasn't like they were looking at each other. The equipment wasn't, they were looking at the same wall, but that was two beams of light interacted with each other and made something happen. And yeah, so that was interesting. So, but is that Fergus? Anyway, the things that go on in this house, usually it's dog farts, just saying. So, but yeah, Frazer Hall. So I hope if you're on campus and you have had any activity at Frazer Hall, drop us a line. You can hit us up on Pocatello Paranormal Research on Facebook and send us a message, because I'd love to hear more stories about Frazer Hall, the hauntings there, because I really don't have any background with it. I didn't know. I've just heard Frazer Hall's really haunted, but I don't know what kind of hauntings have gone on in there.
Plus, that's what you want to do going into investigation. You don't want to have this already set idea of what's happening inside.
Yeah, and some of the students sure did, but I didn't know any of it, so I didn't. Yeah. But maybe too, because they keep hearing about, oh, it's really haunted. Nobody really knows what it is, because we've all heard it's haunted, but nobody really knows. So, yeah. So, pretty cool. Well, thanks everybody for joining us on this episode. We hope you enjoyed it, and catch us next time. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Speaking of Spirits, powered by Pocatello Paranormal Research in Pocatello, Idaho. Thank you for joining us today. We're glad you could be here. If you're enjoying the podcast, please do us a favor and go to whatever platform you are listening to the podcast on and give us a review. We prefer the 5-star reviews. This helps us know how we're doing, and it helps others to find the podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you on our next podcast.